Alright, welcome back ladies and gentlemen to the Chupacabra tutorials channel. I'm your host Larry and I'm here today to show you how to set up and do some basic recording using OBS Studio, and I'm currently using the 27.1.3 version. I think this is mostly up to date, but if not, most of this doesn't change too much from version to version. So the first thing you're going to want to do, if you don't already have the software, is head on over to the obsproject.com and download the latest version. It's available for Windows, Mac OS, and Linux for the low price of absolutely free. Although if you are a Windows 11 user, it is not fully supportive of Windows 11 yet. It's only meant for Windows 8, 8.1, and Windows 10 right now. And then it gives you all the different stuff you see here, all these settings to set up a recording scene to your liking. And then you can record or broadcast, because you can specifically, stream to YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, all that good stuff. So let's minimize that. And once you've got this installed and you run it, it should look something like this. And so what are we looking at exactly? Well, this big black box here at the top is the preview for whatever you're going to try and record. Whatever you see going on up here is what you're going to get in the exported file from OBS or whatever is being sent to Twitch. Down here we have our recording scenes and all of the different source material that goes into them. So this is like, think of it like a scene on the stage at a theater. This is the scene where you've got say Hamlet about to kill his stepfather. And then in here, you've got things like the background, the game you want to record from, or the screen that you want to record from, layered to create a nice little scene up here. And there's actually a few different things that we can do to showcase that here in a moment. Like I can, in my basic recording scene, I can add a display capture to capture my computer screen. And then I will tell it not to record what we're already recording, but to record my other screen where I have my secondary recorder that I use to record all of my videos that involve, OBS. So this is where you set all that up. But for right now, I'm going to turn that off. We'll get to the nitty-gritty of that in a minute. But we're going to just walk through the rest of this. So here's your audio mixer right here. This tells you all of the different audio sources that you set up. Your microphone, your desktop audio, your secondary desktop audio. And if you notice that they're a little bit too loud or not loud enough as you go, you can adjust them right here on the fly. It's very nice for being able to do live recording or live streaming. Over here, you've got different transitions that you can do when popping between different scenes. Like if you're a streamer that does multiple different games, you can set this up to seamlessly transition from one scene to the other to make it really nice for your audience. All of that good stuff. And then over here are just the buttons to start the stream, stop the stream, start the recording, stop it, start a virtual camera, go into studio mode, all of those lovely things. But what we're going to start with here is the settings. So the settings are split into some nice little tabs here on the left-hand side. You've got the general tab. This is more of system settings. Do you want this to start when Windows starts? Do you want to minimize this to the system tray? All this different stuff, what language you're working in. I like the dark theme. You're probably on the light theme, but I just like it easier on the eyes. Your streaming settings are what allows you to log in to whatever streaming platform of choice you like to use. It natively supports YouTube, Twitch, YouTube RTMPS, Facebook Live, Restream, Twitter, and you can do a custom one, which will just ask you for the server address and the stream key of pretty much any service. So this can technically support literally every streaming service on the planet. So in this case, it'll ask you, if you select, say YouTube, it'll ask you for your stream key, and it already knows the server address for YouTube, so it'll automatically input that for you. You just need to know where to get the stream key. Same with Twitch. In fact, it actually lets you log in directly to Twitch using Connect Account, and then you can also use the stream key if you prefer. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Select the service you want, follow the little prompts to give it the information that it needs, and then that's ready to go for when you want to stream to Twitch, YouTube, or wherever. Output is going to be the settings that you control for the video files that come out of your computer. This includes the video that's streamed to a service like Twitch, or the video that's being saved on your computer. Audio is your different audio sources. You can have a whole bunch of them. This is really nice because you can split your audio into different tracks. If I open up my recording software over here and I pull in a random video file, I can show you what that looks like. So you'll see here, I recorded this, and if I need it, my audio is split into my microphone audio, followed by my desktop audio, followed by a secondary desktop audio device, which allows me to separate out the audio from other people if I wanted to record a podcast or something. So in here, you can set this up so that you've got whatever your main desktop audio playback device is. I use a Logitech headset. You can set up a secondary one. I just use the built-in second output for Realtek. And then for my microphone, I've got a Blue Yeti Pro. And it's good to make sure these are all set up so you're not just going with like whatever the default device is, because the default device setting is kind of dumb. So always make sure you set up the audio devices that you want to use, and I'll show you how to set it up so that your audio is split into separate tracks in a little bit. Down here you have a few other settings that you generally don't need to mess with, but they're down here, like a monitoring device that you can listen to the audio as you go. And then push-to-talk settings and hotkeys. Down here under video, this allows you to set what video OBS is going to natively try to use as both its base canvas resolution, that's what you're going to see here for your preview, and then also what it's going to use for the output. So if you want a smaller video, like if you're running a 4K monitor but you only want to work in 1920 by 1080, you can set this here and it'll slightly downscale it. Or you can just leave it at full. And then if you do downscale it, you can improve the sharpness by playing around with these settings. This one down here is the sharpest, and it uses 36 samples per frame to downscale it without losing any quality. And then bilinear is the fastest, but it might be a little bit blurry. It's pretty self-explanatory. It tells you right here what it's best for sharpening, but it's slow and has 36 samples, or this one's fast, but it's blurry. And then the FPS that you want to work at is 60, but you can set that a little bit higher. You can even say like, I forget how you do that actually, but most of the time you want to work at 60 or below a standard frame rate, but some of these allow you to go up to like 120, 240, including the one I'm using to record this tutorial. Hotkeys, you can customize and set up a bunch of hotkeys so that you can easily stop recordings. You can basically set a button to do any of the things you see listed here in this big old fancy list. And then you have some other settings down here under advanced. This is things like color range. Do you want to do a partial color range or the full color range on your computer? Some systems support that, and some games support that, and some don't. I don't think this is going to cause a lot of errors if you set it to full, but just know that when you change this setting, to make a mental note of that in case there's something hinky when you try to record a certain game and it breaks or causes errors. So this will be more advanced features, like you can set the formatting for your file names when you record. You can set a stream delay to, nix out stream snipers, automatic reconnect settings, network settings. All of those lovely things are down here under advanced. But what we're going to focus on here today is under the output. So for basic streaming and recording for your first time streaming or recording, you probably only need to do a basic simple setup. So we'll set the output mode to simple. And for streaming, the way that this tends to work is, because I know a lot of people prefer to stream over Twitch, the basic bit rate for streaming is set to 3500. And if you were going to record a video to put out on the web for like YouTube, that would be a pretty low bit rate. But that's the good basic starting bit rate for Twitch, because Twitch doesn't really like you going beyond 6,000 kilobits per second, because then it starts to bog down their network and it increases the likelihood that you'll have a stuttery stream going on and all that stuff. For the encoder, we're actually going to set that to software X264. I find that this one works a little bit better when you're trying to stream, just because CPU tends to be a little bit more efficient at making sure that's a nice compressed stream at full quality. This one is the built-in hardware recording codec. If you find that your computer starts to lag when you're trying to stream and play your game at the same time, hardware encoders are really nice. It uses your graphics card rather than your CPU to do the video encoding, recording, and sending it to Twitch. This one's a lot more efficient. It just kind of steals a copy of what's going on your graphics card, but it's not as compressed, so this might cause lower quality when you send it to Twitch. Audio bitrate, I like to set this as high as it'll go. Maximum amount of quality, 320 for, the X264 video type, which is an MP4. And then for encoder preset, this is basically what you want your computer to prioritize. So if you find that you've got this set to X264 and it's being laggy, it's stuttering, because it'll start at very fast, then go ahead and bump this to ultra fast, and this is going to prioritize performance of your CPU over the quality of your stream. And then this down here is what allows you to enable these advanced encoder settings. So if you don't see this down here, go ahead and toggle that. Now down here, if you prefer to do some basic recording, this is going to be your recording settings. You can set where you want your recordings to go. You can browse for the file location you want to send everything to. And then down here, you can tell what kind of recording quality you want. High quality, which is going to give you a medium file size. You can go with the same as whatever you're streaming, so it'll take this bit rate that you got set up for streaming and use that to record. And then you can also say lossless, which is going to be a very large file size. And it says here this can be upwards of 7 gigs of disk space per minute, so make sure you have enough space on your computer. I've got lots of space, and I usually do big recordings, but I would say indistinguishable quality or lossless quality, that's going to give you, for like a 20 to 30 minute video, that's like, 4 or 5 gigs maybe, depending on your settings. And then you can set custom mixer settings here. There's a lot of stuff that goes into custom mixer and custom encoder settings, so I'm not going to get into that now. But you can look those up if you feel like you need to use those, because it's like a big spreadsheet of different settings that you can type in here. But for most people, high quality is probably fine, or the same as the stream is also probably fine. And for like a good bit rate for recording, I'd say 25,000 kilobits per second, which turns into 25 megabits per second, is a good frame rate, just because the basic 1080p 30 FPS bitrate on like YouTube is 8 megabits per second or 8,000 kilobits per second, to give you kind of like a frame of reference. But 3500 is a good starting point for Twitch. YouTube will kind of take whatever you can give it though, so if you want to pop that up to like 6,000, you totally can. It also kind of depends on your upload speed too on your internet. Make sure you know what your upload speed is before you try messing with different higher bit rates for streaming. So if I set this to high quality, it'll ask me what recording format I want to use. And for the recording format, most of the internet and a lot of video editors are going to run really well off of the MP4, which is the X264, which is up here. So if you see X264 and MP4, that means the exact same thing. MP4 is very universal. MOV is the Apple format. MKV is more of a Windows format. And I forget what TS and M3U8 do. And FLV is a Flash video format. Now, but for the most part, stick with MP4. It's pretty simple and straightforward, and most people's computers should be able to handle that just fine. It's going to warn you about all that stuff I just mentioned down here. Go ahead and read this and understand it, but I wouldn't worry about it. And that's good for basic recording, all of that. You can set a good bit rate. You can set all these quality preset settings. And then you should be good to go to click OK, set up a scene, and then hit start recording. So let's set up a scene real quick just to show you how it works. And then we can go through and set up some more advanced settings to be a really fancy advanced recorder. So over here, let's say you don't have anything over here. You just have like a basic scene. Let's make a new scene, and let's call this my first scene, or whatever you want to call it. You could call it Roblox, you could call it GTA, you could call it Apex Legends, whatever. This is going to be your scene that you want to use for like recording a specific something. I'm going to use my second monitor as an example. We're going to pretend like we're going to record a tutorial for the action video recorder. So the first thing I need to do is over here, I need to get a source set up. Now these sources are what allows you to capture different sources of audio, pictures, applications, screens, whatever. And for this case, I want to do a display capture. And display capture is just going to record whatever is on your screen, and this can be used for software, for games, for pretty much anything you see on your computer. Just note that if you want to use this to record a video game, because the game capture doesn't work, you might have to play that game in windowed mode for it to show up properly in OBS. Then I'm going to choose my second display, where I have this recorder open. I'm going to click OK. And you've got the option down here to record the cursor or not record the cursor. And you've also got the ability to do a couple other capture methods, like you can duplicate desktop, and you can do like Windows 10, but automatic's fine. It'll just auto detect whatever you're trying to record and try to capture it as best as it can. So now we've got it recording my other screen. You can kind of see me able to move around my software, but let's say you don't want to capture the desktop down here at the bottom, you know, all the different icons for the other software on my computer. I can actually take this whole screen and I can drag it like it's a live object off the screen, the recording preview, so it gets cut off and I can zoom in to just what I want to record. And you'll see the sample box is kind of just off to the side, escaping to the sides when I click on this, and then I can drag it back in at any time. And then if I want, I can right-click this, and then there's some settings for order. You can move these up and down in the scene order to make sure it appears properly. You can transform it so that you can make it look mirrored or flipped, or you can stretch it or fit it to screen. So like, let's say you have an object and it like loads in funny like this, and you don't want to manually drag it to the sides. You can right click this and you can go down to transform and you can click fit to screen and it'll automatically fit it. So you have a lot of nice options when you right click this. You can also rename this object to something else. Like you can say like, this is my second desktop. And then if you wanted to save this object for later and just not record it right now, you could just hide it by hiding it with the little eyeball icon. It'll gray out, and then instead you can set one to do a new desktop capture and just have this one record your primary desktop, and then you can just hot swap between them. So you don't necessarily have to make a scene for absolutely everything. You can just set a bunch of different sources down in here and swap between them. So we've got this, and I want to set this up to record, and usually the way that I record these is I zoom in a little bit so that I'm cutting off the unnecessary icons at the bottom, and then I can record this without issue. Now, what else would we maybe want to add? You can set it up so that you can do a video source, which will allow you to capture a webcam if you're interested. So let's see, we want... not window capture. Window capture allows you to capture a specific program window. It's kind of nice. You can do video capture device, and that'll actually allow us to capture a webcam. So let's set that up. And then I'm going to select my Logitech Brio. And let me flip the cap up on that. Haha! Hello, everyone! And then we can set this up with a whole bunch of other settings if it wants to behave itself. And then, let's see, down here we've got the resolution and frame rate type. You can set this to custom, and then, you know, you can set this to 1920 by 1080, and then it's setting it to auto-selecting to 30 FPS, but this one goes up to 60. And it's actually kind of having an opinion about that, but it does work. So if you have like a webcam you know is more powerful than the basic default settings, you can manually set that using the custom resolution and FPS type. You can manually set the resolution right here, manually set the FPS, like you can set this to highest FPS, which will hopefully grab that nice 60 FPS that this thing's capable of. And then you can select what video format you want, either the MJPEG or UYU-Y2. MJPEG tends to be the better for a lot of things, but I would just say any and let it automatically pick whatever works best for it. You can select a specific color space. 601 is limited, 709 is expanded. Color range is full or partial. I would say full. You know, you want that full, tasty color range. And when it freezes, you'll actually see your webcam start to blink. That's because it's actually restarting parts of the webcam's brain to change those settings. And then the rest of this you can probably just leave to auto detect. Now, when you hit things like configure video, configuring video is going to load either the settings in OBS, but if you have a driver installed for your webcam, it's going to load up the driver program, which is going to allow you to fiddle with the settings to make sure that it's exactly what you want it to be in order to have like the best color, the best contrast for whatever room you're recording in. So that's how you set up a webcam. And like I was saying with the other one, you can then move this around so that we have our webcam in the bottom corner wherever we want. We can set it up here, we can set it over here, and then I can move this so that it's better recording off to the side so I don't cut anything off. You see what I'm doing here? You're constructing the different pieces that make up your video before you record and stream so that what you see here is what you're going to get when you start to record and do all that. So anyway, let's put all this away. From here, we could totally just customize everything that we wanted to, adjust some of the settings, delete things that we don't want, and then we can hit start recording or start streaming, and we're ready to go. Now let's go dive into some more advanced settings and see what those are like. So let's pop back into the settings, and let's go back to output, and let's go to advanced. Now advanced lets us set a specific tab for every last one of our settings. So starting under streaming, we get a little bit more advanced controls here. We can select which audio track you want to record some audio from. This is really just going to mix all of your audio into a single track. So I would just leave it at number 1. You can select what encoder you want to use. Again, I like to use the CPU encoder for sending the best quality to places like Twitch. If you're having lag, the NVIDIA or the AMD built-in one is very nice. Some of the Intel users in the audience might also find they have that as an option. And then we have to look at things like resolution output. Do you want to keep it at 1920 by 1080? Do you want to do full resolution at however high this will go because you normally have a 4K monitor? It really just depends on the specs of your computer. If you've got a big beefy computer and a big beefy connection, send the audience what they want, that full juicy 4K resolution, or in this case 2K. If not, just leave it at 1920 by 1080. Everybody's got to start somewhere. Don't feel bad about it. So here's rate control. And rate control is, do you want to have some wiggle room when the video records? So normally when a video is recording, if there's less stuff going on the screen, it uses less data to record. And then when there's more stuff going on the screen, it uses more than normal. So constant bitrate removes that wiggle room. It says you are going to always record at this much data, even if you're not using it. This is fine. It kind of keeps it at a constant rate, and it prevents things from getting hiccupy as you record. If you prefer to have some more control over that, variable bitrate's a lot better. ABR is slightly better than CBR, and CRF is probably the best. And so CRF, what CRF stands for is constant what is it, constant rate factor? I was going to say like constant rainforest for a sec there, but that's not quite what you're looking for. So CRF is what you would use if you want to record the absolute highest quality possible. But this is a setting that I typically reserve for recording videos and not streaming them. I think for most people, CBR or VBR is going to be your best bet, and that's going to give you some wiggle room when you're streaming so that the video can be the best quality it needs to be, while also saving some data when you're streaming when you don't need it. So the bit rates, as I was talking about before, the base bit rate is about 3,500 kilobits per second. That's like a good starting bit rate for places like Twitch. They say the last time I read about their bit rates was about 6,000 is the most they want new streamers to be running at, because then it starts to bog down, you know, the stream and the network if you go beyond this. And so what does it mean when you start to bog down your stream? Well, if you start streaming and doing a test run, always test before you try to stream, and you start streaming at like 3,500 and it looks pretty good, like just make sure you have your friends watch it, somebody else watch it, and like look at it and make sure it's not like lagging or randomly stuttering or anything else bad is happening. And then you can nudge it up to 6,000 and see if both your connection can handle it and also if Twitch is accepting it at that frame rate. If it is, leave it at 6,000 and see how it does. If you have problems, dial it back. You know, it's kind of a give and take here. Test it. If it doesn't work, tweak it. And then down here, if you find yourself having some lag issues, you can set your CPU usage from very fast to ultra fast, and that'll prioritize your performance so that you can actually do stuff in your game while it's being recorded or streamed. Although very fast works pretty well, and you can even just like pop it down to very slow if you want, but honestly, very fast or faster tends to be a good starting point. You can move it to faster if you want, but really, this doesn't seem to dent the quality terribly at this level of a bitrate. So that's for the streaming. For recording, we got some interesting options here. So for the type, we'll just leave this at standard. You can add some like fancy custom output stuff using programs like FFmpeg, which is a secondary program that I don't really mess with. But we'll leave the recording type to standard. We'll set wherever we want our recordings to be. I should probably update that to this year or next year. For 2022, you can set it up so that it generates the file name without spaces. I just leave it with spaces. And then down here, it asks you which audio tracks do you want to record, and it gives you up to 6. So the recording format is going to control this, but I always record with MP4 videos. You can record with MOV or MKV. And MP4 gives you up to 6 tracks, and I've got 3 different audio devices set up over here in my audio. So you can go over here into your output and say, I want to record audio track 1, 2, and 3. And then under audio, we can set up what device gets recorded to what. And then under the encoder, I like to use for doing regular video recordings on my computer. I always use the built-in NVIDIA codec for H.264 because it reduces the performance bog down on newer games on my system. That way it's not trying to use the CPU to record videos directly onto my computer. This is less of a problem on your computer because I have plenty of space on my computer, so having to compress this and send it to Twitch isn't really a big deal. I can then edit this in my video editor in Premiere, and then I can compress it when I export it from Premiere and then put it onto YouTube. So that kind of is a different problem. So I want the maximum quality and the maximum performance, which is what I typically get by using the built-in codec. So the encoder codec is NVIDIA NVENC. If you're using AMD, it'll say something else, but it'll say like AMD's whatever. If you don't have access to either, it'll just be X264. This will be using your CPU. It may not be a problem, and I'll show you how to change that so it's not. But starting out, let's do NVIDIA. So anyway, I've got my rate control for recording set to CQP, which is constant, what is that? Quantization parameters. It's basically set up for something that you can only use when you use the encoders that come with the graphics card. And this is the maximum quality setting that you're going to use to try to get the most out of those. And the recommended settings that I have here are what a lot of people use. CQ level 20, keyframe interval set to auto, preset quality profile high, GPU 0, max B frames 2. This is a pretty good setting. If you want to use this, just copy this. Otherwise, if you want to do something like VBR, the best bit rates that I like to use for this are like something like 25,000 kilobits per second, and then the max bit rate is something like 35,000 kilobits per second, and then leaving the keyframe interval at auto, preset to high, profile to high, all that good stuff. This shouldn't lag your computer very much because this is really just stealing a copy of the videos or the video frames being processed through your graphics card and being sent to your monitor, so to speak. But I like to use CQP. That's just my personal preference. You can also use CBR, which only uses one flat bit rate. Again, I like to use a nice higher bit rate because it lets me capture as much quality as possible before I edit it. And then if you're finding some quality performance is happening where you're being bogged down or something's laggy or glitchy, you can set the preset to prefer low latency or max performance to try and combat that. Now, if you're using the X264 encoder, this is going to be a little bit different. This is not going to have all those other profile settings, so to speak. You can set like high, main, or baseline, or none. But what you really want to pay attention to is the CPU usage preset. If it's starting to lag you out when you record, or your recordings are starting to get affected because your CPU is having to play the game and also record at the same time, you want to set this to ultra fast. So you pop that, click, super fast or ultra fast, then record and see how it does. That should improve things slightly. I'm just going to set this back to my settings, and then let's go into audio. So this is where you set up your individual different tracks. You can label them. You can set the bit rate you want them to record on. I always set them to the highest they will go for MP4 videos, which is 320 kilobits per second. And then I set the name for them to microphone, background music, and my co-host. And then you don't really need a replay buffer, but if you want, you can set that up here. Then I'm going to click OK. And to set up that multi-output for multiple different audio devices, you'll need to go to your audio mixer, click on one of these gears, and then go to your properties. Oh, wait, no, is it the advanced properties? Ah, here it is. So this is the advanced properties, and this is where you see all of your different audio devices, yes? So from here, you have to assign them to one of the tracks or they won't record at all. Or they'll record to all of the tracks at the same time. So I've set it up so that I've checkmarked the microphone goes in the first track, my desktop audio goes in the second track, and my other desktop audio, my co-host, goes in the third track, and then I unchecked everything else. Because these will all start out as like every option is checked. Just uncheck all of the ones you're not wanting that recorded to. Otherwise, it'll mix everything to every track or nothing to any track, depending on whatever it does. Depends on what update to OBS you're currently using. So once you've got that set up, now you can start recording or streaming with some more fine-tuned settings using the advanced setup versus just the simple. The simple just sets up all your settings on one page. It doesn't give you as many options, but the advanced gives you a bit more control for streaming and recording. And also your audio. So that is kind of like the crash course in setting up all of this stuff on OBS. From here, you might be interested in things like setting up audio plugins and like, oh, I've got a new subscriber, so a little thing pops up on screen. That's all more advanced stuff that you'll probably want to look at a specific tutorial for, but once you've got all this stuff set up and input into your sources and scenes, you should be able to start recording and start streaming just fine. A note to those folks out there who want to do video game streaming and recording, the sources that you'll probably want to use for your scene are game capture, and you can just click yes to set that up, and then you can grab whatever The base setting, I should say, is capture any full screen application. And then if you have like a full screen game already open, it'll pop it up right here in the screen, and then you should be able to start recording and streaming it once you click OK and set it up. You can then say if you want to capture your cursor, use the anti-cheat compatibility hook, which is on by default. That's the one that like doesn't get you in trouble with like GameSpy or that anti-cheat bear program. So you don't, get dinged for using a recorder while you play that game. You can also allow transparency, SLI/crossfire mode if you're having performance issues using that. And if you find that your game isn't popping up in this preview window, you can just grab the option to say capture a specific window, and then you can grab it from this big pull down list of things that are currently open to record it directly. But that tends to work best with games because this is meant to record DirectX powered software. Otherwise, if you find that your game isn't really recording with game capture properly, you might have to run it in windowed mode and then just set this to record either your desktop on one of your two monitors or your one monitor, or you can also do a window capture, which will just record a single window on your computer of any type of software. Sometimes you got to play with it. It really just depends on the game and how they set things up in the settings and the software. So that'll be it for this one, ladies and gentlemen. I've been your host, Larry. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have any questions about any of this, because I know we covered a lot, please let me know. I'll try to explain it as best as I can. And until next time, don't forget to like and subscribe, like I just said, and bye.